Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Project E. Yes, I know I am a little late on this one. I was meant to actually put it out yesterday because it was going to be the last day of the month. However, I kind of miscounted and I forgot the fact that November actually had only 30 days, so I made a different video assuming that I would have an extra day to obviously make it, but nevertheless I'm just going to be putting out here this video, and yeah, let's just get on with it because there is obviously some decks that I did kind of get rid of. But let me just say that I'm definitely really struggling with this particular case here, because at this point there's so many decks that I have left and yet it's becoming so difficult to choose what I'm going to give up on. You know, like I still have some decks that are like really cheap, and because of that I kind of have this urge to continue building them or keeping them. But to be honest, it might be just a waste of time to actually do all that, because if the deck doesn't actually offer anything beyond that, like it has no competitive viability, if it's not necessarily the most funnest deck out there compared to all my other ones, then it may as well go, right? So I decided to try to be a little more strict, that way I could get rid of a few more decks, though with that being said I could barely get rid of some decks and I only managed to get rid of 4 for today. Now of course, as a reminder, by getting rid of these decks, I'm able to save time in actually building the decks that I truly want to build instead of diverting all my time to multiple decks. I get to save money whenever new support comes out, so that way I don't have to go out buying them. It also takes away the stress on the back of my head. But also, if the deck doesn't actually suit my dueling needs, or rather if it doesn't aesthetically please me, then it doesn't really have a purpose in my actual collection. So before I get on with these decks, if you guys enjoyed this particular video, then please consider dropping a like, comment, share and subscribe if you still haven't, it really does help. However, the first deck we have here is the Metal Foes deck. Now Metal Foes is a pendulum deck, and the reason why I actually wanted to keep it is because it was a pendulum deck. It was really interesting seeing as it was capable of popping each other and getting a lot of benefits off that, but the thing is this, I found that I was really just playing the Metal Foes fusion in most of my decks anyway, and that's kind of what led me to want to build the actual Metal Foes deck. So I did accumulate a few cards, but there were plenty of cards I was still missing, like the Alkahest and a few of the other fusion monsters as well. It was mostly just the actual main deck monsters that I actually had, which weren't really complete anyway. But ultimately I realized that I didn't really want to play the deck and it wasn't really a true representation of me. The reason why I wanted to keep it for so long as well was because it was a unique variation to a lot of other decks out there. But did it actually satisfy my enjoyment? Not necessarily. I found that even the most simplest decks that don't really do too much turn out to be a lot more fun than this particular deck. I don't know why, it's just how I feel. Maybe it's something that's missing, maybe it's just not to my taste or not to my liking, but it's just how I feel. And with the particular artwork, although it's nice, it's not necessarily my taste as well, so as a result I didn't really feel that there was a need to continue building that. I'll just keep the fusion spell because it's usable in many decks, but as for the main deck itself, I'm just gonna give up on it. Next up we have the Golden Castle deck. Now the Golden Castle deck was a deck that came out mostly in Shadows of Valhalla. Because of that, the set was actually filled up with a bunch of secret rares, which made it really interesting because, I mean, just to have a deck all blinged out in secret rare is definitely fantastic, but it just took too much time for me to actually accumulate those cards. Even till now I don't have every single card out there, I just have a few of them. Some cards I don't even have, but the Golden Castle is definitely a really interesting archetype because it was obviously based on fairy tales. However, when you actually analyze the deck itself, you realize that there's not really much to it. It has a small specific gimmick, but it takes so much to actually win, and because of that, it just doesn't hold up to my liking anymore, and I just decided to get rid of it. Now next up, you guys might be a little surprised to hear this, and that would be the Thunder Dragons. Now the Thunder Dragons was a deck that I was actually aiming to build. I already played Goat, so Goat format is definitely a really fun format on its own of course, but you had Thunder Dragons in the deck. I had actually 3 copies of them, and It was mainly to play with Graceful Charity, but bit by bit I would accumulate each of the Thunder Dragon cards just one by one, you know, a lot of the newer support, and I thought to myself, maybe I could actually build this deck. I never actually played it, so I just tested it out online and I kind of liked it. It was also one of the most competitive decks out there as well. However, given that the ban list has already hit a lot of their best cards like Colossus, and having the rest of the deck being there just as remnants of the former Glory deck, I realized there's no point in actually continuing this. Maybe I'll rebuild it if Colossus ever comes off the ban list again, but with that being said, there's no need for me to search out all these cards. I don't have all of them anyway, and the only one I really want to keep would be the original Thunder Dragons for my GOAT deck, and that's pretty much it. But it was a deck that I considered for a bit more of the competitive play. Some decks I did have obviously some casual decks, but sometimes I do want to have a few more competitive style decks out there. But given that Thunder Dragons no longer have that, was there really any point in me actually building them? I think it's something that has the potential to be built in the future if it actually ever improves again, either by new support or either by the ban list being generous, but for the time being, it's just not there for me. Though I must say the aesthetics of the deck is definitely to my liking. Now as for the fourth and final deck, it is going to be Gizmex. Now Gizmex were getting kind of supported, I guess, into their own archetype, and it was expected to come out in Dawn of Majesty. Now of course there was already Gizmex Orochi and Gizmex Yata, which I own copies of. But then when I read the news about the new ones coming out in Dawn of Majesty, although I actually expressed my distaste for them, I decided to build it anyway, and this was back around I think August or something like that, and because of that I tried to build it in secret, which is kind of ironic. I mean, Project E is meant to be me getting rid of decks, and yet there I am actually trying to build a new deck. I realized it was just a mistake, and thankfully I don't have too many of them. I have Orochi still, I have the Yadas, but I decided just to get rid of the Yadas. The Orochis can actually still be played, so thank goodness for that. But as for the new Gizmex support that was in Dawn of Majesty, I figure I'm just going to get rid of what I've already got so far, and that's really just me getting a few of those commons and rares that my friends would have given me that they managed to pull. However, these were the 4 decks that I decided to actually just give up on. A lot of these decks were just me playing them mostly online, and I was trying to pursue them in real life, of course, by completing these decks and accumulating the cards. But I just found that it ultimately wasted my time because it was diverting my attention away, and I was just spending more money on something that was completely pointless. So for that reason, all of these 4 decks had to go. However, with that being said, we have definitely now surpassed our goal, which is definitely fantastic of course. I am intending to get rid of as many more decks as possible. Of course, we still have 3 more episodes following this, so I'm hoping to get rid of as many more as possible, and hopefully by the end, I'll have very few decks left. But I will admit that it is definitely getting to a really difficult point, and I am absolutely struggling. However, what did you guys think about these decks I got rid of today? Were you guys actually hoping I would deck profile any of them? Were you guys actually expecting any of these decks? But thanks for joining me today. I hope you all have a terrific day. I'll see you all next time.